Hi, it's the Jan Johnson, and thank you so much for coming back. What I wanted to do today was tell you a story that's a major coincidence that happened to me. And as you know, I don't believe that there's any such thing as coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, and these coincidences happen to me for a reason all the time. And they guide me to let me know that I'm on the right track. And I always look at them that way, and they never ever fail me. This story takes a bit to tell, so bear with me on it because you're going to be blown away when you hear the end of the story. This happened a number of years ago when I was with the very first networking company that I was with, and I had reached the top level in that company. And so what I was doing is working with members of my team, helping them reach that level as well. So I had organized a retreat at my house. I lived in the mountains on 35 acres at the time, and people were coming from all over the U.S. who had reached a certain position that they qualified to come to my retreat. And so prior to that retreat, I also had to travel the week ahead. And so what happened is everybody was coming to my house at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. That's when they were going to arrive. But for the week before, I was driving to New Mexico and then on over to Arizona for different people that I had to meet with at the time. And so that was my schedule. So I organized everything ahead of time. I had an assistant. She was helping me getting ready for the Saturday morning event. I was not going to be back home until around 9 o'clock on Friday night. And then everybody's going to be at my house on Saturday morning, so I had to be prepared. I had written to everybody and let them know to be prepared for inclement weather because it was at the beginning of April, and in April in the mountains of Colorado it can be dicey. And so I let everybody know that. What I hadn't prepared for was that while I was gone, it snowed 5 feet at my house. And with drifting, it was clearly, like in some areas, 10 feet high. They couldn't even get a snowplow up my quarter-of-a-mile long driveway. They had to bring in a backhoe. All of this had to be organized while I was out of town. And so on the way home, I was kind of freaking out, going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I had breakout sessions all organized for different areas of the property that I had secluded for this event. And now we couldn't go out there because it was going to be way too much snow. So what could I do inside? What exercise could I do that would go along with the theme of breakthrough thinking that I had for my retreat? And so as I was driving, I was intent as I was driving and thinking, I've got to think of something. I'm going to come up with something and it'll be awesome. And it occurred to me that I remembered there was an exercise that we had done as management at IBM a number of years before. And this exercise involved getting people together, having groups of us all try to do something, and then having someone come around and tell us, oh, by the way, this is a timed exercise, so then we tried to do it faster, and then come by and tell us that, hey, another major company had done it in X amount of time, so then we thought, oh my gosh, now we really got to do it faster. And because of that pressure, we all came to a breakthrough, and everybody figured out the exact way of doing the exercise, but it took a while for us to get there. I thought this would be perfect breakthrough thinking. It was done inside because we did it inside the walls of IBM. But what was it? What was the exercise? I can't remember. I have to figure this out. So I started to think of people that I knew from IBM that would maybe remember back to that time. And when I got home at about 8:45 on Friday night, I called up someone and I said, Trish, this is Jan. And do you by any chance happen to remember an exercise that we did at IBM? And I explained it to her. She goes, yeah, I do kind of remember. I don't know exactly what it was, but you know who would know that? It's Bob Howe. Remember, he was the head of education. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, but how would I get a hold of him? And I need to know now. And she said, well, he's in the phone book. He lives in Estes Park. You can call him, but if he doesn't answer his phone, make sure you leave a message because he screens his calls, because he deals with different groups, and so he screens his calls. And this was back when you left a message on a recorder and they could kind of overhear that you were calling them from the recorder. So I picked up the phone, got his number, dialed him up, and sure enough, got the recorder, and I said, hi, this is Jan Johnson, don't know if you remember me, and he picked up the phone. And so when he picked up the phone, he said, hi, Jan, of course I remember you. And I said, well, sorry to call you so last minute and hope you've been well, but do you by any chance happen to remember an exercise that we did at IBM? And I explained it. And he said, yeah, of course I do. It was done with sponge rubber balls. And the sponge rubber balls had words on them, like energy and proficiency and that kind of thing. And what you do is you hand those sponge rubber balls, you break out into groups, and you hand a set of those balls to each one of the groups. And then you tell them that you want each one of them in the group has to touch the ball. And immediately what everybody does is they think they're supposed to concentrate on the word. And then someone goes around and tells them, by the way, this is a timed exercise. So you try to pass it around really, really fast. And then you come around and tell them, oh, by the way, X company did it in less than 4 seconds. And you're like, how in the heck did they do that? Because we've just gotten it down to like 35 seconds and thought that was good. And he said that's when it's a breakthrough. And then everybody realizes that if you stand up and put your hands in the center and drop the balls down from the center, then it touches them and everybody touches them. And it's a breakthrough. It's a new way of thinking, which is what I wanted my team to realize, is that I wanted them to think outside of the box and think of new ways of thinking. And we were going to go on and do other things like that during the day. So I thought, that's awesome, Bob. Thank you so much. He said, do you have a fax machine? I said, yeah. Dating myself a bit here because this is before the scanning and everything else. And I said, yes, I do. He says, well, I've got this. I can fax it over to you. I said, oh my gosh, you're going to make me look like a superstar. This is incredible, you know. And I said, now I just need to get the balls. And he says, well, Jan, I'm sure that those were gotten rid of years ago. And I said, no, Bob, not the balls. I just need to get some sponge rubber balls. I can write those words on them. And he said, great. I hung up the phone. By now it's 9:45. And I called Target and I asked them, do you by any chance have Smurf balls? And my son was in the background going, Mom, Nerf. It's called Nerf. I said, oh, Nerf balls? And they said, yeah, what size do you need? And I told them just small ones and how many do you need? And I counted the number of people that were coming and they had them. So I called my assistant who lived down in Denver and I said, do you by any chance happen to live 15 minutes from a Target? She said, no. Now what? I said, well, you know, what I need is sponge rubber balls. I'm going to be doing this breakout session because there's so much snow up here and I thought maybe you could stop by. And she said, just a minute, Jan, let me check on something here. And I could hear her fumbling around and I heard this rattling of like plastic. And she goes, I've got all these sponge rubber balls. My mom gave them to me from a long time ago when she used to work at IBM. They have words on them. Is that okay? I was blown away. I had the balls, the instructions, and was ready for that meeting, 9 o'clock the next morning. Manifested that out of, that exercise was actually done, I had figured out 8 years previous to me coming up with this in my head. And my assistant had the very balls at her house. How incredible is that? Was I on the right track? You betcha. Keep an eye on your coincidences, folks. They will let you know if you're on the right track. And there isn't anything that you can't manifest if you put your mind to it. I so look forward to working with you. Hope you have an awesome day.